Hello, and thank you for taking the time to listen to this recording of the presentation I did on the organisation-wide We Are Doing session. Thank you for taking the time, and more importantly, thank you for participating in the We Are All in This Together survey undertaken by Best Practice Australia back in February. And as I begin the session, I'd like to acknowledge and extend our appreciation for the Watchabollock, Jadwa, Jadwajali, Werrigaya and Japagal peoples of the Watchabollock nations, the traditional owners of the land that we live, play and work on, and all other lands represented. We recognise that these lands have always been places of healing, learning and caring for elders. We pay our respects to leaders and elders past, present and emerging, for they hold the memories, the traditions, the culture and the hopes of all Indigenous peoples. We express our gratitude in sharing of this land, our sorrow for the personal, spiritual and cultural costs of that sharing, and our hope that we may walk forward together in harmony and in the spirit of healing. Our integrity moments are, at Mallee Track, we treat all clients and colleagues and the community with integrity and respect. We consider conflicts of interest, ethical issues and congruence with the organisational values when making decisions. We reflect on our performance to ensure that we behave in ways that are consistent with the Code of Conduct. And our statement about rights-based care. The services provided at Mallee Track are grounded in the principles of rights-based care. We uphold the person-centred approach that prioritises the dignity, respect and autonomy and choices of the individuals and their families. Our commitment to the agency of the recipient of our services ensures that they are at the heart of the decision-making about their own lives and the services they access. Our approach is articulated in the models of care and the policies and procedures that guide our practice. I was challenged to provide a quote for context for this presentation, and my quote is from Confucius. I hear and I forget, I see and I remember, I do and I understand. And we're drawing on this approach in how we manage the results that you've given us from the We're All in This Together survey, because we are taking action on what you've told us and we are doing. So this presentation is about the results of the whole organisation. Throughout the month of June, you will have the opportunity to hear the results for your directorate and your service areas. My talk today has 3 parts, as advertised in the brochure. I'm going to share the results as a whole of organisation. This information will also be available in screensavers and in the handouts. I'm going to talk about how we as a whole organisation are going to respond to what you've told us. And I'm going to say what we are doing already in response to your comments. So the first section is to talk about the summary, the high-level summary of what our results say at a glance. And so essentially, the Best Practice Australia has 7 levels of the way they classify organisational culture. And the one at the top is a culture of soaring, a culture of succeeding, and then the next one is a culture of surging. And that's in fact where we have landed. So your responses have been classified as saying we have a culture of surging. And so just to give you a bit of a snapshot about what you identified as the most important attributes to you. These were, the organisation provides adequate flexibility in the hours and shifts of work. During the past year, improvements have been made to the organisation's consumer satisfaction levels. The organisation provides an environment where the values are consistently put into practice. During the past year, improvements have been made to the motivation of the organisation. And during the past year, improvements have been made to the organisation's services and facilities. Now, that's the top percentage of responses to all of the questions that you were asked And what I'd like to share with you now are those responses that actually achieved the lowest level of engagement. So those areas for future action are people want to improve the way things work in the organisation. So what happened there is only 59% of people said that that was an attribute of Mallytrack. Employees are low numbers of agreement with this statement. Employees are encouraged to take whatever measures they think necessary in order to truly satisfy their consumers' needs. The organisation provides a fair day's pay for a fair day's work. The employees have enough control over their work to truly satisfy their consumers' needs. People are proud of the successes and achievements of the organisation. Again, they were the lower scoring attributes of the organisation. So the next part that I'd like to talk about is the headlines. So as I said, we've got a culture of surging, and we ended up with a 69% participation rate. So thank you very much to everyone who took the time to tell us what your thoughts are about the organisational culture. So the organisational culture has employee engagement of 58%, which is that there is an adaptive type of culture here at Mallytrack. The Best Practice Australia has started one of their signature questions that they put to employees is to rate their organisation as a truly great place to work. And Mallytrack, 75% of you think Mallytrack is a truly great place to work, and that's a great result. Very, very proud of that. Similarly, Best Practice Australia has surveyed tens of thousands of health services over the 30 years they've been in business, and what they do is benchmark our results against our peer group, and on that scale, we achieved an 82% benchmarking strengths, which is well and truly acknowledged as a very high score. So we're doing very well in terms of the culture of the organisation. So when they talk about that, they said that we have a 58% of people who are engaged with the organisation. They gave us a breakdown of all the three different categories of engagement. So there are 9% of people who work at Mallytrack who are not at all engaged with the culture of the organisation. But more interestingly, more relevant to us is the 33% of people, and they're called swinging voters because they can't decide whether they actually are engaged with the culture or whether they're not. And so we'll be taking steps to try and engage with those people to make sure that we can have a responsive organisation to what they need. The next thing I want to talk about is the demographics of the group. So the people who, you will recall that you would have been asked a few questions about, your age and where you work and whether you're full-time or part-time. So what I just want to give you a bit of a snapshot about the characteristics of the people that did respond to the survey. So one of the questions was tenure. So there's 22.5% of people who responded to the survey have been employed at Mallytrack for 1 to 2 years. 17.5% less than 1 year. And then the next highest number is the 6 to 10 years, sitting at 17%. So other than that, the spread across all the age groups is fairly even. But I do want to call out that 8 people identified that they had worked at Mallytrack for longer than 30 years. So I just want to say thank you for your service. The age group breakdown is very interesting, and the highest number of respondents were people who identified as being in the greater than 60 years age group. So 18% of respondents were over 60 years. The next highest group was the 46 to 50 year people with 14.5%. But other than that, they're pretty well evenly spread across all those age brackets that they report on. Interestingly, 16 individuals preferred not to say how old they were, and I'm actually not sure how to interpret that information. If you'd like to give me a bit of insight into why you would answer that question as prefer not to say, then I'd be happy to hear from you, because this survey is about us being able to, the management of the organisation, being able to improve the organisation so that you end up with a better place to work. The next one is employment status. So we ended up with 68% of people who responded were part-time, 25% were full-time, and just a couple there were casuals. The next question is around gender identity, and not surprisingly, we ended up with 93% of females responding to the survey and 6% of males. Another interesting group here is the 10 people who would prefer not to say about their gender. And again, I'd be interested to hear from you if there is anything we can do to make you feel more comfortable about telling us your gender, how you would prefer, how you identify. The next one now. So Best Practice Australia analyses all of these data that they collected in many ways, and they see a very strong correlation between people who are engaged in the organisation as having regular contact with the executive team. So interestingly, 44% of people said that they have contact with the executive regularly. 50% of people said they have contact with the executive sometimes. And very disappointingly, 16.5% said they have never had contact with the executive. And I actually plan to change that statistic over the next 12 months. The next demographic that I have here to talk about is position. So which department or which role do you play in the organisation? And so we have the highest groups that responded to the survey were indeed nearly 20% of the respondents were identified that educator was the role that they play in the organisation. So that's people from early years. And then people from administration, 12% identified as coming from administration and 12% from food and domestic services. So thank you very much to those people for participating in the survey. Now, the other thing that I did want to mention is this dimensions of diversity. So the level of diversity that we have in our organisation. We had a couple of people who identified as culturally, linguistic or ethnically diverse in this organisation. But the most striking statistic out of this is that we ended up with 11 people who identified as having lived experience of mental illness, and 7 people who identified as having a visible or hidden disability. And I think that's important for us all to realise that the level of how we need to adapt the way we engage with each other based on that level of diversity in our population. The next part of my talk is to talk about the results of leadership. So this is a couple of parts here, talking about the traits, what you see as the traits that people bring to the role of leadership. And they are honesty, being friendly, caring, respectful, committed, competent and knowledgeable. So really nice to see those qualities being what you identify as our leaders' qualities in this organisation. The next question was about what do leaders actually do in the role on a day-to-day basis? And so the two highest scoring areas there are the leaders are actually supportive and approachable. So great information there. Thank you for that feedback. Other traits that were identified about how the leadership does their work on a day-to-day basis. They're fair, inclusive, flexible, leading by example, communicating well, encouraging, empowering, understanding, helpful, listening well, and available. So all positive attributes that you've identified in the leaders. The next thing I want to talk about is what your expectations of the organisation are as a whole, as not in your particular work group, but as a whole. And essentially the two highest expectations that you have of Mallee Track are to have safety at work and to receive support. Other than that, you mentioned respect, communication, teamwork, feeling valued, management in general, and colleagues and friends, consumers, and fairness. And so fairly consistent sort of expectations of the organisation across our peer group as well. The next thing that I want to talk about is, in fact, this notion of benchmarking. So Best Practice Australia provides us with, to give us some context in being able to interpret these results. How did you fare against the other like populations of employees across the country? And they do that under a number of categories. So we've got trust, forward momentum, employee satisfaction, tangible and intangible conditions, work enablers, and then resolving problems, improvement momentum, and autonomy of action. So interestingly, we did score very highly across a number of these areas, and in some of these areas we actually set the benchmark. We reported that we had higher levels of engagement than everybody else that they have ever surveyed. So about the trust, there's a high trust in the executive team, there's a high trust in the management team, and there's a climate of trust and respect throughout the organisation. Results for each of those was well and truly above our peers. Forward momentum, people are very optimistic about the organisation's future. There's a strong sense of success and achievement. Things are getting better all the time. People are very positive about tackling problems. There's a can-do mentality. Change in the organisation. There's better things to come for me. There's a strong sense of purpose and direction. And people are proud of the successes and achievements of the organisation. So all of those were above our benchmark partners. And there was one where we actually rated the same as everybody else, which was people want to improve the way things work in our organisation. So very generally, very good result from that. So the next one is employee satisfaction, and we achieved a 56% result, and our peers normally sit at around the 43%. So the organisation consistently meets my most important expectations of it. So yes, thank you very much for your feedback. In terms of tangible and intangible conditions, we did well with adequate flexibility in the hours and shifts that I work, good career opportunities, opportunities for personal and professional development. We achieved the same level as our benchmarking partners for that I get appropriate remuneration for the responsibilities that I have. So, and that I get a fair day's pay for a fair day's work. So pretty well the same as everybody else for that. And in two of the categories here, we actually did set the benchmark. So the organisation provides a safe working environment for me, 79%, against the benchmark of 60. And the organisation provides secure employment. We achieved 91% against the benchmark of 77. So great results for us there. Intangible conditions. So a friendly work environment, an environment where values are consistently put into practice. The friendly work environment was indeed above our peer group, but we did set the benchmark for our values being put consistently into practice. So a great result. Thank you. The work enablers. Now these also were above our benchmark partners. Workloads that are fair and equitable, recognition of my achievements, clear communication about the things that affect me, and clear reporting lines. But I want to say we achieve outstanding above the benchmark results for I get the support that I need to get the work done, and there's good physical conditions of employment. So thank you for that feedback. And then this last page here talks about resolving problems, improvement momentum, and in every single category of those two areas, we set the benchmark, and I'll just read them out for you. The organisation wants to hear the bad news as well as the good news about itself. The organisation acts quickly to stop small problems becoming large problems. The organisation introduces change quickly. It is fast, focused and flexible. Overall, the organisation has made significant improvements during the past year. Well done, thank you. The next one, again, we set the benchmark on every one of these, improvement momentum, and these are: improvements have been made to communication in the organisation, improvements have been made to motivation in the organisation, improvements have been made to the organisation's services and facilities, and improvements have been made to the organisation's consumer satisfaction levels. So really well done, outstanding results there. In terms of autonomy of action, we were a much more central tendency there. We're pretty well the same as our benchmarking partners. Employees have enough control over their work to truly satisfy their consumers' needs, and employees are encouraged to take whatever measures they think are necessary in order to truly satisfy their consumers' needs. So again, a prompt there for us to take action on. So indeed, that's the way the results came out in our We're All in This Together survey, and thank you very much for participating in it. The next thing I'd like to talk about is what we're going to do over the next 12 months to actually improve the organisation for you based on the results, based on the information you've given us. So the two issues that we're going to concentrate on are communication and positive workplace behaviours. And we'll be doing a number of things to improve that for you over the next 12 months. We'll be conducting staff briefings in June, August and November to keep everybody informed about how we're doing. Finally, I want to finish up to tell you with what we are currently doing in relation to communication and to positive workplace behaviours. I want to say that in the context that the results, you can see the results that you've given us in the Best Practice Australia survey tool has indicated that we do have a really high level of cultural maturity, and really what we're after for this next 12 months is to move us from good to great. So what I want to say is we are actually doing a number of things in relation to communication and positive workplace behaviours, but you will see over the next 12 months we'll actually step that up to move us from good to great. So the ways we're currently communicating are through all staff emails, staff newsletters, notice boards, the Kronos clock, the portrait boards in the hallways, people's picture with some simple messages on them, and the quality boards. Notices in the staff rooms, and as you'll notice that we've installed a television in the staff dining room at Oyen, and there'll be another one installed in Sea Lake soon. And then screensavers. They're the sort of the static messages that we try to convey. You will be aware that you have service area meetings every month to talk about the issues relevant to your area. I'm not sure whether you realise that the messages that you send from those meetings actually get delivered to the board. So we have a floor-to-board meeting structure. So the things that you mention at the service area meeting get mentioned at the management meeting and then get passed on to the board, and indeed in the other direction as well. The next meeting that we have is the work in progress meeting, which is held weekly, where managers get together and talk about our achievements each week. And we're thinking about how we can actually make that meeting available to all staff so you can see what we're working on every week. Another meeting that we have is the Innovation Forum, which is where we as a group get together. Anyone can come to that meeting, get together to talk about the new things that we might explore or questions that are perplexing us, and we'll think up ways to resolve them. On a more practical level, we have a number of workplace-based communication mechanisms that are used every day. So safety huddles in every ward and department. You'll meet regularly to talk through safety issues. You'll recall the Safe Talk poster, which gives some guidance how to respond when situations get a bit tricky. As you know, we have a very solid network of contact officers to whom you can reach out to discuss anything that's worrying you. From a clinical perspective, we have handover sheets that convey information from one shift to the next. And of course, there is always the senior leaders on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We also communicate through education, and we've got a fairly comprehensive education program running at Mallee-Track. So there's the Mallee-Track Education SharePoint on Teams, which will give you access to a myriad of resources in relation to education. Everyone will be familiar with the Gold platform because that's where we do our mandatory education. There's a whole suite of courses that you can undertake there on the Gold platform. We run orientation when we need to, so when there's a couple of new people starting, we'll run an orientation program. Speaking up for safety is certainly a very strong part of our education suite, because that notion of having psychological safety, being able to talk and raise issues that are of concern, is very important. We've recently started doing a leadership masterclass, and that's for people who are in leadership positions to refresh and renew their approach to leadership. Some of you may have attended the communication workshop that was held last week by Kirsten Dyer. Now that's a great workshop that allows you to explore ways that we communicate in the organisation. Lunch and learn. Come along, bring your lunch and hear from experts about what's new in their area of the world. And of course, we're developing capability in our managers through our management development days. In terms of, that's really, what I could think of in terms of communication. In terms of positive workplace behaviours, we do have a couple of mechanisms already in use to share what we see as being the acceptable standard of behaviour here at Mallee-Track, and how we rely on our values to guide our behaviour. Some of you may be familiar with the Culture Charter, and it also talks about psychological safety and us having a no-blame culture. Again, some areas have done some work to explore or clearly articulate those behaviours that they believe, in fact, are appropriate in the workplace, those that are above the line, and then also make clear to everybody what they won't tolerate in the workplace, those behaviours that are below the line. And so we will be working on that and expanding that over the next year. Bystander training, everyone will have had the opportunity to attend our bystander training to understand how to respond when people behave inappropriately. And of course, we must comply with the public sector values. So that's one of the documents that guides our behaviours at work. You'll recall that in this meeting, I used the integrity moments to remind us about how we comply with our values and our code of conduct. And we're also, this year, we've also reinvigorated our Emerging Leaders program to actually help people understand how to behave as a leader and enact the organisation's values from that perspective. That brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you for taking the time to watch this recording, and please keep in touch. If you've got any issues, you're most welcome to drop a line and I'll respond. And keep an eye out for the further sessions that are going to be held to go through these issues with everyone. Thanks very much.